Welcome back to another episode of the Chill Film Discussion. Yay! It's been a while since we've been live, but
Long
we
time.
are back with another episode. So thanks for your patience, everyone who was waiting so long for this epic episode. But yeah. Anyway, today we kind of discussed slash reviewed a film called The Warrior's Way, which is a 2010 New Zealand South Korean fantasy action film. And it's about this warrior by the name of Yang who is played by Jang Dong Gun. I'm I very much mispronounced his name, but anyway, he is the strongest warrior in all the land ever. And he basically ends up uh, killing the opposing clan except for this baby, and then ends up like um, keeping the baby alive, and then that essentially marks him as like number one on his own clan's hit list. So now he's being pursued by his own clan, and he goes and escapes to the American West, where he befriends and meets Lynn, who is played by Kate Bosworth, and I guess like Ron, played by Jeffrey Rush, and other of the town who basically is like a traveling circus of sorts.
Yeah.
And he gets incorporated with Lynn's, um, you know, I would say co-plot, like you mentioned earlier, co-plot, because Lynn has a tragic past of like this corrupt colonel who essentially killed her family and tried to like rape her. Yeah, so she's got a traumatic past. She's out for vengeance, and she befriends Yang, and they open up like a laundromat of
Yeah.
some sort, laundry service, and then Yang kind of teaches her more about swords, fighting and swords, how to handle a sword. So yeah, there's that, and then that's essentially it. Sort of accumulates at the very end, with the whole climax between the battle of the Colonel's henchmen, uh, Yang's clans, um, warriors also come to pursue
Yeah.
him, and then of course, Yang and the townsfolk, like almost like a three-way battle of sorts. While Yang is trying to protect April, which is the little baby girl,
Yeah.
who he did not end up killing. Um, yep. So yeah, Lynn gets her revenge, and yeah. Wait, I just feel so like essentially this whole that was a very long recap of that story. I don't know why I basically was telling the whole story. I'm supposed to be recapping our
That's street, yeah.
impressions.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what's going on? My bad. We can and we can just cut that out. Keep that short. But yeah, okay. My impression of the movie. To get back on track. I thought the movie was all right. It wasn't terrible per se. It could have been much better. I think if there was a little bit more um, combat maybe shown. I
Mm.
think there was a lot of combat that was stylized to be very, what's it called? Like it's supposed to portray Yang as like the strongest swordsman ever. So there's this a lot of shots where he would just like slice through his opponents, and you won't really see any like fighting per chance. It was just very one sided, which is I think done by design, but would have
Yeah.
been preferable to see some combat, more combat. There is one scene I really like, which is where he was fighting down a hallway, a dark hallway against the Colonel's henchmen.
Yeah.
When the Colonel's henchmen are trying, shooting him, and basically the lighting just comes from the bullets.
Hmm.
That was very cool.
I was. Yeah.
It really reminded me of a scene from Daredevil, where Daredevil is fighting henchmen down a dark hall, and it's like one continuous shot. Um, I don't know. It felt very real, like not realistic, but it felt very. That was like sort of like the close combat I wanted to see more of. Um, but yeah, I think another thing would have in terms of combat would have been nice is that I would have liked to see the more of the duel between Yang and his mentor at the very end of the movie. We got to see flashbacks, which makes sense because it's supposed to put more emotional weight on this feud. But still would have been nice to see some sword combat because basically all we saw is his mentor's necking sliced, and then
Yeah.
like it's like I'm dead, you win, and then dies. But yeah, I think overall as a character, Yang is your typical. Uh, I shouldn't say typical, but basically he's very stoic, emotionless, and yeah, it's not very personable per se. And I think that's part of the story is that he's trying to learn more of that human,
Yeah.
more of that human nature side, where like he's almost like he's settling down and he's trying to like find a new perspective on life because all he's been doing is fighting. But in terms of I mean, it just feels a bit you know you really can't really connect with him as much. And in fact, the only times we can connect with him is through his relationships with other people, like Lynn. Like those are
True.
most of the times that we can't. So as far as protagonists goes, like it could have been maybe been easier to connect with him if he had a bit more humor in him, but understandable. Another thing is that just like I think the acting in general was pretty good. I think there were some effects done in some way that the movie was shot was very perplexing. Like there were slow motion shots that were like, I'm not sure why that's happening there. And also it just the whole like absurdity of like basically at the climax of the film where it's like ninjas versus cowboys and this big battle, three-way battle between like clowns, ninjas, and cowboys was just very absurd. And I guess it was amusing to watch, but yeah, I think also the Lynn's side of the story was also I would have liked to see more of like Yang's side being interwoven into this
Yeah. I agree.
movie. Lynn's plot just overtook Yang's. Like Yang was introduced, Yang moves to American West, and then it's all Lynn's plot. And then up
Right.
to almost the very end, when she like kills the colonel and everything. It's nice that there was some resolution. Like she was going to kill him, she got her resolution, but it kind of overshadowed our main character to the
Right.
point where like the movie was almost like it could have just been like both, or it could have been from her perspective,
Yeah, I agree.
and
It
it
could have
would have
been
been
her
like
from her.
basically no different in terms of functional or not functional in terms of portrayal
Right.
of like the plot in general. But um, yeah, I guess there's just some um other parts that were just like perplexing to say the least. Like for instance, the I didn't really like the ending. Actually, the ending itself where he leaves Lynn in April, I'm totally fine with because I think it fits the theme of the movie. But I do, I'm pretty sure like that the very last sequence of the film where he's like fending off his assassins in the Arctic.
Yeah.
I just feel like that was just so unnecessary and just basically felt like it was like stand up for a sequel
Hmm.
if the
That's
movie
true.
had done well enough.
I agree. Yeah.
And
Seemed like it.
the movie did not do well enough. So there was no sequel, and it just feels very unnecessary. But
Yeah.
yeah, they definitely didn't need that in this film. So that's sort of my impression. It was overall all right, but there are definitely faults,
Yeah.
flaws. Yeah,
Okay. No, I,
so
I,
that's it. What about
I
you, Mr. Austin?
no, I do agree with you. I mean, this movie is kind of okay. Maybe less than so. I don't know. For me, like the beginning of the movie kind of set different tones and expectations. Uh, and even then, it's just I don't think it was like the strongest start of a movie. But the movie goes on, the story is there, but everything else, I just didn't really like the execution too much. But it's just
Yeah,
maybe the story, characters, kind of I liked, but I think it could have done a lot better with what it had. It had a very interesting premise, ninjas versus cowboys, and I think it could have done a lot more with it. It just maybe failed due to I don't know direction or writing or just maybe budget constraint, but a lot of things just I don't think raised the bar for this movie. Just like in the introduction, right? It's kind of weird, right?
yeah,
Like we have a lot of exposition, we have narration, and then a lot of Yang's characterization is done through narration in the beginning, like who he is, what he's striving for, instead of like showing it, right? It's like yeah, we have Ron kind of narrating over it, like what this character is, and I don't think that works too well. I think it should have been shown because then and Yang doesn't talk too much in the movie either. He's kind of a silent character. Um,
yeah,
but just in the beginning, it's kind of weird because you have also, again, you set the tone. In the very beginning, we have him say, we like title like words whispered on the screen, like strongest swordsman ever, right? And it's a weird kind of comedic kind of thing that happens that's never really seen again. You think it's going one tone, but the movie has a different tone altogether. Just with
Yeah.
the introduction, I think it kind of falls, and but it kind of the movie kind of picks back up a little bit throughout. Um, I think Yang. I mean, the acting I think for Yang, I don't think was. It felt for me, it felt a little bit flat. He's kind of emotionless, expressionless, and maybe that's the point, right? This character is a swordsman who's stoic, has no emotion. Yeah, and I get that, right? But I think it could have the performance could have been a little bit more layered because this is a character. It just felt everything was delivered very flatly, and I don't know if it's because of the direction, right? Maybe because of the director, or if it's because of maybe the actor, because this is he's a South Korean actor performing in an American movie. He has to act in English, so maybe the performance is not really there. But I've seen this
Yeah.
actor act before in a very good movie, Brotherhood of War, which I really love. And he's very expressional, very expression, has a lot of expression and emotion there. But it's again a different, very movie, right? Because in that movie, it's more emotional, war, right? Here, it's more, he's a stoic swordsman. So it could have been, different performance. I'm not sure with its ability and whatnot, but I didn't like the way that was kind of portrayed. Every other actor, though, in the movie, all American or Western, your European and whatnot. So they have, I think, better command of the dialogue. So the acting there, I think they're able to do a lot better here than our protagonist. And then things that kind of bothered me, I think just the ending. So you and I, we have disagreements of how the ending of the theme, right? I agree with you that the whole thing that this movie kind of seems like it's setting up for a sequel, like where maybe he separates himself and whatnot, and trying to find trying to protect his family. Yeah, I agree. If it's the sequel, a longer trilogy of a movie, or not longer series, that could have worked, right? But taking this movie by itself as a standalone, it doesn't work for me. I think the theme should have been more lifting, where he tries to find love, right? But like, throughout the film, he's someone who's trying to raise April, find try to get his emotion, reconnect, right? He gets the theme from Ron, who's played by Jeffrey Rush, that you should push away those who you love. I don't think that was a very positive message to do. I think you should be able to overcome it, right? But he doesn't do that in the end. He pushes everyone away and has this kind of lonely, solitary lifestyle. Character may have achieved all his objectives, but he doesn't find this kind of inner peace, right? Which bothers me because we always want the main character to win, and he doesn't win in that regard. So that's where we're different. I know, but I think the ending could have I would have wanted a little bit more happier ending, or ending just it is setting up for a sequel. So I mean, I get it. You want to set things up, but at the same time, you should finish things in this movie with better themes and the way portrayed. And then other characters, we talked about, Lynn as a subplot. She was a good character. Yeah, as we said, her plot was kind of raised. And I definitely wanted to see maybe, because of how prominent it is. Even if we changed to Yang, we discussed that it would have been a different movie. If they tried to see how he connects, because most of the movie, at least in the middle, is really just focused on Lin. So having her maybe introduced as the main protagonist instead of like the secondary protagonist to Yang, which is kind of whoever's introduced first and whatnot. It would probably be better to have her story, her point of view, than going to Yang's, but that's debatable. And then Ron, I think his character is introduced, at least like how powerful who he is introduced very late. I think that could have been interwoven, or even with the plot, with some of the villains and whatnot we discussed. It would have been interesting to see him, or just introduced later, like he's like a legend or whatnot, but he's kind of fallen down, or just like have some kind of show of visibility, because he's introduced kind of like he's this cache weapons. He's kind of this Deus Ex Machina kind of thing where he can help the town fight against all the bandits, which I don't, I would prefer it to kind of be layered in instead of introducing kind of at the last minute. And there was this whole story where I think it could have been better, because he kind of says he was a bandit pursued by the government, with the sheriff, whatnot. It could have been kind of interwoven, with the colonel's gang. Maybe not the colonel himself, but someone like under him, to have that kind of interwoven, story plot with all these characters kind of coming up to the end of the conclusion, right? So a lot of the characters I think could have been worked. The execution could have been worked. Story was just simple enough, but it could have been focused elsewhere. And then the action itself, it's. I agree. I wanted more as well from with all the fighting. There's a lot of wire kung fu kind of thing where everyone's jumping, a lot of slow motion. I don't know. Sometimes all it works, but there are some scenes where it's definitely stylized and very interesting and cool. Like when he slashes everyone bits. As I think you mentioned it before, it's kind of like an anime kind of thing, and you can kind of see it coming out. It's interesting, but there could have been more done to it, more action. And I get it. They don't probably want to spend too much on choreography, but at the same time, you have a master swordsman. You want to see him fight. You want to see his skill, right?
Mhm.
You kind of expect that. So when you don't get it, or it's only delivered like sparingly, it's kind of like, yeah, we want more from that. We want to see more of that, flashy action and whatnot. But yeah, cowboys versus ninjas, very interesting concept. You think the guys with guns would win, but they don't. There's more fantastic element there. It's a fun ish kind of concept that they kind of play upon. So yeah, interesting movie.
To say the least, yeah. All right, well, let's do our final ratings. So my rating would be a solid five.
A solid five.
Five, yeah. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I don't think it's anything good. I probably wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for a sort of an action fantasy film.
Yeah.
There are definitely better ones out there, but yeah. I mean, five, very neutral toward it.
Yeah. No, for me, I'd give it a 4. I just think it's just kind of
Mm.
below like the average. Like it's a movie that's there, has all this stuff. I just think it could have been maybe just a little bit better. Sometimes it's just subpar portions of it execution wise. So, and yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think I'd probably recommend this movie either to watch.
cool. Well, that is the end of this stream. No discussion.
All right.
Designing that stream. Love it.
Bye.
But yeah. Thanks everyone. Have a good day whenever you watch it, if you watch this, and we'll see you again next time, probably in 2 weeks,
Yep.
with a new movie, which we'll decide off screen. Off screen.